Hello and well met. This is Laren again with part 3 of our module conversion series. Today I'm going to continue with working on images. So what I've done ahead of time is I've gone in and I rendered all of the images that I had showed in part 2, and I described how I was going to rename all the files so that they match the page numbers and a brief description of what the content is. So I'm going to open up my images folder. And mind you that I've made a separate folder called FGU work folder, and this has the name of the module. So the reason for this is to keep organized. So I created a working folder so that when I'm using Fantasy Grounds, I don't get confused, and then I will import and keep all my content in one area so that I don't lose it on my computer. It's very important to stay organized throughout the process. It really helps. It speeds things up. So here in the images folder, I have this images basic folder which doesn't have anything in it. So this isn't going to come into play until I actually convert all the images. Right now, they're in a folder called AL module images, and that's what I used when I rendered it from the program I used, which was Canva. So all of these images here are now part of PNG files. They are separated from the PDF, and these are all the images that I'm going to import. These have specific names, like this is handout, this is a handout, I have another handout, but then I also have a map, and then NPCs. So these are important titles to maintain or to consider when you are creating content that has more than a couple images. So right now I have this handout, comma, page 2, comma, Inner Cove Ocean Shark. So I'll know what that means when I see it in the file tree within Fantasy Grounds. It's very important that you have some form of naming convention, and this makes it so much easier when you're working in Fantasy Grounds. So you're not constantly having to jump back and forth from the PDF and try to figure out which image goes where. So this was really helpful if you have more than 1 or 2 images. If you only have 1 image, no big deal. But when you start getting more than 2, it can be a real pain in the butt. So just keep that in mind for organizational purposes. The next step, after you have all the images named and labeled here, is that you might want to create some sort of tokens out of these NPCs. So I'm going to do that just to show it, but these might already have tokens in the monster manual or the SRD or whatever these came from. So this might be extra work that you don't have to do. However, I might as well just show you how this is done and gives you an idea of what to expect when you're working with this type of file. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different images that I'm going to make tokens out of. So I'm going to open up a free website. This is Token Stamp, Roll Advantage Token Stamp. This is a free website application. This allows you to drag images in here and size them, and even adds a border. In this case, I'm making pogs. These are not the fancy top-down ones, but nonetheless, just gives you an idea of how this process works. So all you have to do is start with an image. I usually like PNG files to start with instead of JPEGs because they stretch a lot nicer. Then later on at the end, I'm going to convert everything to JPEG. Until then, I'm going to work with PNG files because they're more flexible, higher quality, and they just work better with most applications. But they are larger files. So I'm going to open up the folder that I had, which was this images folder. I'm going to minimize it a little bit and then keep this page open. And what I'm going to do is drag and drop this corpse flower NPC that comes out of the PDF into the web page itself. And as you can see, it already kind of set this up. I kind of like the way it's centered. I don't think I need to change anything, to be honest. That looks pretty good. It shows the creature and a little bit of the ground, and it looks good. You might want to change the ring around the edge of this, so maybe you want a nicer border. So on the top left of this web page, there's a way you can select a border. So maybe you want this golden colored one to make it stand out a little bit more, maybe the silver one, or you can pick a lot thinner border so that you can see the picture more. and you're getting more of the image. I think I just want to do that and leave this white border, but you can go with whatever color you want. And then if you want to choose a different background color, you can do so. So I might change that just for contrast, because it kind of blends in already with the content here. So maybe you want it blue or something, just so you have some contrast. But other than that, that's really all you have to do. You can stretch the image if you need to sort of make it fit a little bit better, or you can make it a little bit bigger so that they can see more details of the creature. However you want to do it. But I kind of like the way it was without messing with it too much. So I might just leave it a little bit more stretch, but not much. And that's basically all you have to do. Once you're done with it, you hit download, and it will actually download. It'll say token 1 or something like that. The default dimensions on this particular token is 256 by 256 from the application itself. So you can resize that later, but that's the default pixels per inch. So it's roughly about the size of a medium creature as far as how you want it to look in Fantasy Grounds. But we can adjust those later when we actually get into working with tokens. So I'm going to go ahead and hit download, and I'm not going to worry about what it's called yet or anything. I'm just going to get it downloaded so that we have a way to manipulate it and change it later. And right now I have my Paint Shop Pro, which is Corel. This is something that I actually purchased. I use this occasionally for resizing and for adding borders and that sort of thing. Like I said, I use 3 or 4 different tools to do this type of work. So as you can see, this is the image here, and if you right click on it, you can get the image information. So it's 256 by 256. It tells you the file size, that sort of thing. So that's kind of why I like using this program. It's a lot more thorough. And when you actually have it set to 100%, that looks pretty good. You can leave it at this size, but the recommended size for small to medium creatures in Fantasy Grounds for tokens is 100 by 100. So you can shrink this down so that it takes less file size. Because when you got 100 tokens and they're all large file size, that adds up. So if you're worried about the size of your module and having too much data memory tied up, the way to handle that is to resize these images. I'm not going to resize them yet, but I just wanted you to see what the product looks like. And now the next step is I'm just going to keep doing the same process. So I'm going to go back to the folder I had and just replace this image with the next image. This is the Morkoth, and this is the what do you call it? The Mephit that comes from this particular thing here. So this is going to be a token for the magma Mephit that comes from this module. And again, if you're going to play this, I'd recommend you don't watch too much of this. But so here's the Mephit. I might make this a little bit bigger. It's kind of up to you how you want this to be interpreted, but I think if it's too small, that it may not be noticeable on the battle map. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And then maybe I'll use this really fancy colored kind of glowing orange background color so that maybe we can see what's going to happen here with this particular token. But then again, you may want them all themed to be the same. So I might just go back to this basic white border so it shows up more on a map and it's easier to detect. So maybe they'll center it just like that. So it's kind of up to you how you want to center these, but you want to show the detail as much as you can, but you don't want it too zoomed in or too zoomed out. So there's kind of a happy medium that you're going to have to decide for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and download that one. And it's going to keep doing this process until I get these all done. So I'm not going to worry about them yet. I'm just going to get them all turned into tokens first. Just the ones that that you think you'll need for the campaign. I'm going to use all of them because I don't know which ones at Fantasy Grounds or the rule set is going to provide already. So here's the genie. So I'm going to go ahead and put that guy in here. And it looks pretty good, actually. I think I'll leave it. Maybe I'll just shrink it just a hair. Not really much at all. I think that works really nice. It looks good. I like the background color. I'm going to leave the border as it is. and just render it. So I think I like the centered sizing, and that's kind of why I did this in Canva, because when you bring these images in, when they're all different shapes and sizes, it's a little bit more challenging to make them turn out good. So I'm going to go ahead and download that one. And then again, I'm going to go back to the same folder, and here's the pirate. This is a female pirate, so, or at least it looks like it is. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and put it in token stamp. So again, I'm just drag and drop this in here. And the reason I'm able to resize these and make them kind of cool is because I took the time to actually take them out of the PDF and kind of make it fit, make it work for this situation. So I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit. Since her feet are already cut off, I'm just going to go with that and make it so we can actually see the token a little better. And then for the background, I might change it to a different color, blue, or maybe a light blue. Yeah, I think this, also, if you want to use a color picker, I have an app here that I can hover, so I can pick a color from the web page, and then I can go here and look and see which images I'd like to use. So it just depends on what you want. But if here's the background color. So anyways, so that's the way you can do it. And then I'm going to hit download, and that's going to download that again. So all of these little image tokens are going to be in my editing software first, and then I'll render those later. I'm just trying to get them created first. So these are just some of the steps you might go through when you're making assets from your content. So this is just a way that you can quickly create tokens. This works really nice for, if you have a dozen or less. If you have a ton of tokens, there is a batch mode, but in order to use the batch mode, they need to be the same size, because you can download them. You can enable a batch mode and upload a whole bunch of images, but they need to be the same dimension and centered. Otherwise, they won't turn out right. They'll all be offset and that sort of thing. So you can do a bunch at once, but you need to make sure that the canvas or that the outside, as well as the image, is centered as best you can. And you want them all to be the same size. Otherwise, this batch mode doesn't work too well, because everything is different sizes, they won't line up, that sort of thing. So you kind of have to be a lot more organized if you're going to do a batch. So let's see if we're going to do that. Okay, here's the Morkoth, one of my favorite looking creatures here. Oh yeah, that's really nice. So this is a pretty ugly looking creature. I'm going to go ahead and pull him in a little bit. I don't think we need to see all of his tentacles, but then again, I think that works pretty good. And then I'm going to change the background a little bit to a darker blue instead of that light blue. And maybe lighten it up a little. There we go. So that's just basically the steps for doing these kinds of images. So again, this is Roll Advantage token stamp, and it's free. And you can do these in a batch if you have your stuff organized by size. Or you can also do this as a way to, one at a time. So once I have all those images, my next step is probably going to be to put them somewhere, to resize them. You can do that in a batch mode, or you can do it individually, depending on your program. So if I go to my photo editor, which in this case, this is Corel, all of these images are in here. If I go to File and Export, I can export all of these into a PNG file, and then use those as my assets. But if you want to batch convert them, you have to do a batch process, and then you're going to pick the photos that you want to process, and then you're going to select which type of script or type of photo editing that you want to do, and then you select the output of each file, and you can even put prefixes and such on there, and then you put your format output. So in this case, for tokens and the like, we're going to leave it as PNG files. Generally, that's the format those are in before you put them in the Fantasy Grounds. I don't think I need to resize them because they're at 256, which is a happy medium. But if they are a small creature, the when you actually assign it to an NPC, when you put it on the combat tracker, they might be a little big. So that's something you have to consider and decide later. But I'm going to go ahead and close this Corel. I don't need to use this right now. It's not something that I need to bother with. And now I'm going to go back into my folder here. I need to find all of those tokens that I just made. So what I'm going to do is in this images folder, I'm going to make a subfolder called tokens because I want to keep this all organized and I don't want to have to look for stuff. So that's what I'm doing now. So I've rendered all of those images and they're in my downloads folder. So what I will do is go back through here and I will look for all of those pictures that I had just rendered out of this new program. So they're right here. So I have all of these images. I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste these. And I want them to go into this tokens folder. And then what I will do at this point is I'm going to preview them. I'm going to go with the extra large tokens, and then I can rename them. So like this one, I might call this Morkoth underscore TKN, which would be, some sort of prefix or suffix. This one is I can't remember what this is. This is the magma method. So magma underscore method underscore token. And then this one is a genie. And then underscore TKN, which means token. And then this will just be pirate underscore TKN. So if you notice, I made my own suffix here. I don't remember what this thing was called, like a death flower or something. So I could go back into this PDF. I have it handy. And I'll go back in and look at the name of this. So this is the corpse flower. That's what it's called. I even had it highlighted from before because I kept forgetting the name of it. So this is the corpse flower. So that's what I'm going to call this token here. So we'll call it corpse flower. Oops. I accidentally copied instead of pasted. So you're going to be doing a lot of copy and pasting. So if you're not familiar with that process, this will take a little longer. But Control C is when you highlight is copy. And then Control V, as in Victor, is paste. So if you've never used Windows, those are the commands for copying and paste. So Control V, and then I'm going to put an underscore TKN, which just kind of gives me a way to categorize these. So we have the genie, corpse flower, the Morkoth, pirate, magma method. So that's what these are going to be called. So this is just preparation for all of the images. And then I'm going to do another one with maps. So if I do a new image into the folder, I'm going to put the maps in there. And I go to this AL module folder and just grab these two maps out of here. And I'm going to leave the masters in here. So in case I need to go back and create something else, I'll have the originals. But these are going to be somewhat modified. I might add some embellishments on them if this was my own content. I might even go in and make these look really fancy. You could do that if it's your own content. Like I might take this Caravel, this map thing, and open it in Canva and then make something really nice with it. So I can give you an example of what I'm talking about. So if I open up this image here, and then I go into Canva, I can actually create some pretty nice stuff with it. So if I go to Canva, I could technically start a new image. I would probably keep it at the same design. So I'd go with the custom size, 1000 by 700. And then if I want to orient the map to a different direction, I could. But I think in this case, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So here's the image here. So I can copy this and then I'm going to paste it into this actual image here. Now, once you start stretching these out, that's when the image can become off or off-centered in Fantasy Grounds. So when you try to put a grid on it, it can be a real pain. So you got to be careful when you stretch images, is that they will tend to lose their squareness, and it's really hard to line up those lines. But if you want this for more like a handout and not necessarily a very accurate battle map, you want it to be more like a picture or something, you can do something like this. Right now I can take out this background. Right now it's white, so if I go to edit image, I can actually remove some of this background out, and it'll just hopefully leave the black lines out of there. Yeah, so there's most of that stuff is taken out. Now I can go ahead and start adding my own background. So if I go to, I'm in Canva right now, so if I go to backgrounds, I can add that to there. I can also take the asset that I had earlier from before. So I have my upload pictures. So if I actually grabbed this compass, I can put this in here. That would look pretty cool. So this would kind of give you a rough idea for like a Rosette Stone type thing. And then again, I'm gonna take out the background white just in case. Is what'll happen is if I want to layer another image, it'll just look like a big white blob, and I don't want that. Now I might actually stretch this map out a little bit more so that I can actually see, since I'm not going to worry about the dimensions too much, because I'm not going to use this for the battle map. But this will make it so I can actually see the map a little bit better, and this might be good for just like a reference for a handout. And the only reason I'm doing this is just kind of show you what, some of the things you can do, especially if you're doing homebrew stuff. You can do whatever you want. If this was an official conversion, I wouldn't be doing this. So this is just a kind of a little bonus here. So here I got this deck and I have this compass. I might fade this out a little because this part looks kind of faded, and this looks really bright. So what I'm going to do is go to the opacity and kind of turn it down so it somewhat matches the map, and it doesn't look like it's overpowering. So I kind of got to give it that faded look. I might have faded it too much, so let's go with like 70%. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that kind of helps blend it in a little bit better with the background. And then I'm going to go ahead and find some more of these assets, but I want to get a blue background first. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, and just to kind of give it some flavor, but maybe not this photo. Maybe I want to use that background image where they actually had the ships in harbor. Here we go. So this might be a really good way to kind of give you that immersion. And then I'm going to go ahead and edit the image. I'm going to remove the background again like I had done earlier so that I can render these images. And you see it took too much. So that's not what I was looking for. So you got to be careful with those type of tools because they can be too aggressive. So what I can do is I could restore that image, or I can just move on to something else. So I'll just find something else that would match. So I'm going to go with a background, and then I will find out what I want to use. So here's the background. I want to just go ahead and take maybe some water like this and use that as kind of like my background, which is kind of nice looking. And as you can see, you kind of lose this image here because it's dark, but you can see this white part very good. And then there's this boat down here that you may not want to show that. So you can stretch this out a little bit more and cover that if you want, or you can put something there that's, it's going to get in the way of it. But basically you could do stuff like this to make the map even nicer. So maybe instead of that background, I'll use that, but then use the blue as the faded blue, kind of like a, let's see. Yeah, so this kind of goes into a different gradient is what I was looking for. So maybe something like this, and then use a blue gradient, something like that. I think that looks pretty good. I mean, because you got ocean here, and then you have this background, so you can pick whatever you want. I mean, you can even put like a tile back there, I mean, whatever images you think are going to make this map look good. So maybe just something like that, but then use the, maybe use that, and then maybe the light blue. Let's see, let me go back to the gradient. So go back to the gradient. Instead of using white, you can use a blue color like that. There we go. That looks pretty good. So maybe I'll move this compass down here because I want it to stand out a little bit more, and maybe I will turn the opacity up a little bit more so it actually sits in the pocket. There we go. That's pretty good. So there's your blue stuff. Then again, you can add those images that you had earlier. So I've already stripped all the images, so I don't need to redo it in Canva. So if I go back to the original images, I have a bunch of them that I can use here. So maybe I want to incorporate this reef. So if I go in here and I hit copy, and then I'm going to hit paste, so Control V, it's going to allow me to grab that and pull that in. So what I might do is just take this and stretch it and let it kind of be a backdrop to give this more interesting contrast, and then go ahead and put this in the very back so it's not covering anything. And then what I could do is take the color from here, from this actual image, and then take it and use that as my background color instead of what I have now. So if I go to backgrounds and I pick the color picker, which is this here on the top left, add new color, grab the color picker. I'm going to use the color that comes from this background instead. So that would do that. And then what did I do wrong here? Oh, that's because it's the background. Got it. Okay. But you can change this background to match this image that I put in here. So if you want it to blend a little better, you could do so. So let me do that first, and then I will put it back. So this, I won't stretch it right away because it kind of takes over, becomes the background. But I want to use the color from it to make this fade. So if I go back to backgrounds and go to the color picker, I can open up the color picker and then use the actual color of this image as the background for this gradient. I think that's what I was trying to do. Let's see. If I go to background, oops, I want to go to background. How did I get to Instagram? Let's see, backgrounds, and then what is going on here? Let's see. I want to add background. There's uploads, there's those. Okay. So anyways, you can add this in. It'll match the background a little bit better. Okay. And that, and I'm going to send it backwards. There we go. So this is just something you could do to kind of enhance your play and to make your images more interesting instead of just black and white. You could also put it in Photoshop and color it a little bit, however you want to do it. But anyway, so this is all I got for today. I just wanted to give you an idea of how to organize the content and, you know, have it named and labeled. And then we're going to re-render it as different formats when it comes time to doing so. I could have images here, and then I also have my token. So these are just some of the things that you're going to go through when you're making a conversion. You might have better tools or a quicker way to do it, but nonetheless, that's what I got for you today. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll be back again for some more of this. I just wanted to give you an idea of how to organize the images and sort of things that you'll go through. So take care. See you around.